Hey folks, Hubsan have finally put live the ZINO Mini Pro, available for pre-order. But should you pre-order this drone, will it do everything that Hubsan promised that it's going to be capable of doing, or not? Let's discuss. Hi folks, welcome to DroningON Live, and thank you everybody for tuning in so far. This is a very, very interesting story from Hubsan, and I truly hope that this company will be capable of bringing us something a little bit new, innovative, and possibly something that might take on DJI. But we so far have very little to go on. And so in this video, we're going to talk about what we do know so far. We're going to also look at the new pre-order page that Hubsan have put live with the prices and the availability, and the specifications of this new drone. Thank you everybody for tuning in so far in the live chat. And if you are watching this on the live stream, hit the little live chat button and you can actually chat as I'm talking and presenting here as well. So that's all good. So what do we have from Hubsan? Well, let's just switch to the web browser view. This is the page that went live not long ago. And here you can see that we've got finally a price. Now, we didn't actually have any idea of what this thing might cost. We did know that it's from Hubsan, and Hubsan generally are targeting the budget end of the market. And so we did expect that it might be fairly good value. We've got a base price here in American dollars of $459, which is, it's comparable with the Mini 2. So this is not looking like a cheaper drone than the Mini 2 at this point, but do consider, however, that of course the capabilities of this drone on paper at least are far beyond that of the Mini 2, and we'll talk about specifications in a minute. As Matrix says in the chat, this is indeed going to be a very interesting year for mini drones because bigger is no longer better in drone world. It does now seem to be that everybody wants a nice portable drone, and so do I, to be fair, if it's as capable as the bigger drones. So let's talk about before we get into pricing and availability, we'll just quickly talk about specification of this drone. Now, we don't actually, as I say, know any of this as fact. We only have what's here at the moment on the website. It's going to fly longer, so 40 minutes instead of 30 minutes. And I'm comparing that to the Mini 2 at the moment. 40 minutes is an incredible amount of flight time if they're actually capable of delivering that. A bigger camera sensor as well. So the camera sensor of the Mini 2 produces absolutely fantastic results. But in theory, this drone is going to have a bigger sensor. And of course, a bigger sensor means better low light performance. The bigger the sensor, the more light you can get in there, the more it captures, and therefore better at night or in capturing those lovely sunsets at the end of the day. Also lower aperture as well, so this has a much lower aperture than is touted by the Mini 2, and that again helps towards low light performance. Obstacle avoidance, everybody out there has been moaning for a long time that the Mini 2 doesn't have obstacle avoidance. Now, people really shouldn't have to depend on obstacle avoidance. Ultimately, it's there as a safety factor rather than something that you should be relying on. But I do know that for many drone operators out there, it's that peace of mind, isn't it? It's that safety margin just in case. And that does give people a little bit of assurance that they're going to be okay and not crash into anything. And active tracking as well. Now, that again is another big gap on the Mini 2. We do love drones that are able to track us. It's not a feature that most of us use very often, but it is something that's nice to have in our drone toolkit, isn't it? The ability to be able to draw a box around something and the drone will track it. Now, one thing I did notice from the specification is that it talks about the availability of two base versions. One is a 64 gig version, one is a 120 gig. That to me says that one of the key differences will be a lack of SD card slot. Now, looking around this drone in the pictures here, it's hard to say whether it has a slot or not. There might be one within the battery bay, there might be one in the side within one of these little panels that we see here, but we just don't know. Now, the very fact that the availability here is based on a storage size, to me, absolutely says that this is not going to have an SD card slot. I think it's going to be fixed RAM, fixed memory built into the drone on the main PCB itself. that could be a problem for me. At least if I'm flying a drone and I'm going on holiday, I don't keep one SD card, because if I one day of that holiday lose my drone, I lose everything that I've shot throughout that holiday period. So what I tend to do is take maybe 5 SD cards with me, smaller capacity, 16 gig. I'll shoot with one SD card one day, take that SD card out and store it. And then I put the next SD card in, so that if I lose the drone, the other factor, of course, is if that SD card gets corrupted, you don't want to lose everything. So it's good practice to switch SD cards when you're flying. This to me says it doesn't have an SD card slot. That's going to be, I think, a big gap. They will have clearly done that for cost saving. Also, as far as I'm aware, SD is a patented technology. The actual slot, the card design, you have to license it as a manufacturer. That would have, of course, increased the cost for Hubsan to produce this drone. So by not building that slot into it, it's cheaper for them to manufacture. But it's not ideal for people like me. And also, as Hendrik says in the chat, without an SD card slot, that's a non-starter for me. Gorilla Man's Garage, great channel name by the way, has said he has pre-ordered from the international site. Let's see, Gorilla, I'd like to know if you're going to maintain that pre-order after we finish this session, because we're going to talk through a lot of positives about this drone, but we're also going to talk about the challenges of a drone pre-order. So no SD card slot, I think, is going to be a big problem. Now, one of the other things I noticed on the Twitter feed is that they are also touting a thermal version. Now, how Hubsan will produce a thermal version under 250 grams, I think is impossible. I don't think the thermal version will be incorporated into that weight, because thermal traditionally needs 2 cameras. The resolution of thermal cameras is so low that you can't fly with just a thermal camera. The resolution is so incredibly low that you could barely make out a branch, a tree. Even you will just be a small blob, a pixelated blob on the screen. So generally they have to carry 2 cameras. So that I can't see being below 250 grams or even at 250 grams. But also, again, pricing, will come onto that later. The Twitter image that they also saved does also reinforce the fact that this is, I think, going to have fixed RAM, 64 or 128. Thanks DJI Drone Pilot for the comment, nice video. The other big difference is zoom. Now, this apparently is going to have a 6 times zoom. They actually, in the specifications, call it a hybrid zoom. Let's see if we can find it in here. There we go. Up to 6 times hybrid zoom. Now, hybrid could mean a few different things. Bearing in mind that this does have a big sensor, a bigger camera sensor. That means that it could, in theory, be utilizing all of that sensor to give us a sensor crop type magnification, rather than a digital zoom whereby we're just simply taking a pixel and stretching it and making it bigger. It could be that that's what they mean by hybrid zoom. Very hard to say though. We really need to know a little bit more about that. We'll also come on to that later when we finish talking through these specifications, because what's written here on paper doesn't always reflect the reality of a pre-order campaign. The weight of it, 259 grams, 200 grams in Japan. Now, you might remember that DJI actually produced a version of the Mavic Mini for the Japanese market because the weight limit there for registration is lower. I believe it is actually 200 grams. And I think they did the weight saving by shaving some milliamps off the battery, which means you don't get your full flight time, of course. But that does mean, looking at the specifications of this drone, the battery weighs just over 100 grams. That means the Japanese version has to have a smaller battery, I think, because there's no way that the drone itself can only weigh 100 grams as well. The drone has to be about 150 minimum. So the Japanese version probably won't fly for 40 minutes. So if you are in Japan and you're thinking of pre-ordering this, then do consider that aspect. Hans Gott says, do you think I should sell my Mini 2 for this drone, in your opinion? Thanks for the comment. Firstly, we will come on to this, but it largely comes down to, is this drone actually capable of what we see here? So they're the specification enhancements. That's what's better about this drone, the Mini Pro, in comparison to the Mini 2. But everything else is on par, I would say. There's nothing negative about this drone on paper in comparison to the Mini 2. It has everything the Mini 2 has and more on paper. Let's talk about the price. So $459. That is for the base version. Now, bearing in mind that the base version includes one battery and it's fixed at 64 gig. I see no mention in here. Let's just check. No mention here of SD. If I search for SD card, there's no mention of it. So I think you're stuck with 64 gig once you buy this drone. You can't remove the SD card. That's it. So $459 for the base version with one battery. If we compare that to the Mini 2, the regular package that is, so $449 we get the Mini 2. So this new drone from Hubsan is slightly more expensive, but effectively it's $10. They both come with one battery and a controller. So price-wise, they've really priced it to be competitive, despite the fact that the Hubsan drone has a far greater specification on paper. I'm sorry to keep saying this on paper, but this is a little bit like the Mavic 3 leaks and rumours. They are just on paper. There's actually no evidence that the Mavic 3 exists right now, and so therefore we have to be very speculative here. We have to not assume, we have to just speculate. And that means not believing everything that we read, sadly. So price-wise, the base model is about the same price. Hey, Man of Steel drone, thanks for watching from the Philippines. If we then look at the other package options, so let's take for example, the Fly More Combo Extreme Bundle, as they call it, which is 3 batteries and a bag, which is what you get with the Mavic Mini 2 Fly More Combo. We're looking at an extra $110, which is marginally more expensive. That's actually very cheap to add 2 batteries and a case. That comes in at $569, and then when we look at the Fly More Combo of the Mini 2, $599. Now, we don't get any additional detail on this Extreme Combo. We don't know actually what it really incorporates because the detail here on the webpage is incredibly minimal. But we do know with the DJI that we get more than just 3 batteries and a case. We actually get the multi-charging hub. We get a spare set of props. We get, lots of other little accessories here. We don't know what we get with the ZINO Mini Pro. And this is my big problem with the Mini Pro from Hubsan right now. They're telling us virtually nothing. We just don't really know much. Hey, Obru Trinut from Philippines watching as well. Thank you, buddy. So they're giving away very little here. Now that brings us perfectly onto our next topic, knowing very little. Now what we see here is the dream mini drone. It's everything we wanted the Mini 2 to be. The Mini 2 is brilliant. I can't fault the Mini 2. But this drone that we're seeing here right now, literally, if you could hope that the Mini 3 looked like this from DJI, then it would be the perfect mini drone. Hubsan have really set a high benchmark here. In fact, it's not this high, it's up here. It's outside of the camera scope. And the reality is, we've not seen any evidence of this drone actually in existence yet. We've got these 3D renderings at the moment, which look like this. Clearly it's CGI, clearly it's rendered. It's straight out of their design package that they've used to actually design this drone. This is not a real photo of the drone. So don't be tricked or fooled by these. They're not photos. They are just 3D renderings. That means that the final drone might not look like that. It might be bigger, it might be smaller. The other challenge is it could be heavier. It might not have the specifications that we see written down here, and some of these specifications might change. Now, just to give a bit of history here, my background in drones started with a project a long time ago called ZINO, which was a crowdfund campaign. I don't know if any of you invested in ZINO, but if you did, then you'll remember it and you'll probably be feeling quite frustrated by it still, because it was a campaign that raised millions in Europe. In fact, I believe it was Europe's biggest crowdfund campaign ever, and it failed miserably. They promised the world, they said it would do this and that, and it failed to deliver. It was never shipped. Well, a few went out to people. In fact, I have one boxed up, never used, never flown. But the majority of people lost their money, and it got hopes up because it promised the world. This was back in, I think, 2015. There you go. This drone was this big. It was going to have obstacle avoidance, a high resolution camera. It was going to have everything, GPS, and it failed to deliver. Next, we saw Lily. I don't know if you remember Lily drone, the drone that you could toss into the air and it would start flying all by itself and hover, and it was waterproof. You could land it in the sea, land it in the fresh water during canoeing, and it would just take off again and follow you. Raised millions. In fact, it was YouTube's biggest, it had YouTube's highest views for 1 month for its trailer, its commercial. And guess what? That drone also flopped. It didn't deliver. Not a single unit went out to people other than a few beta testers who still can't fly it because the app was turned off and it's basically useless now. It's a brick. So the story here really to be learned is that pre-order does not mean that you will get the drone that you see pictured here. It does not mean that you will get the drone with these specifications. And it also doesn't mean you'll get a drone with all of the features that it's promising. So we're promised active track here. You know, we're promised that the drone will be able to follow you. I started my channel DroningON reviewing these drones which were sent to me, such as, for example, the Moment drone. Don't know if we can find it. Let's have a look. There we go. Sim2 Moment drone. And this drone promised to have so many different features. It promised to do so many things. Blimey, I looked so young in that video. And the reality is that it was released and the app was only just partially finished on launch. People pre-ordered it. When it arrived, people were quite disappointed because many of the features in the app, you'd press them and it'd just say, sorry, not implemented yet. And you tend to find that this is part of the agile design whereby they'll put a pre-order out there, you get the drone, the app is not finished, the firmware's not finished, but legally they have to send you something so that you can't ask for a refund. And that means that you're going to end up with a drone that can't do half of what's committed to. I think at the end of this review, this drone actually fell on my head, if I remember rightly. At some point, I think it fell out of the sky onto my face. But this is, you know, I've got a lot of experience in pre-orders. I've got a lot of experience in crowdfunders. One of the most notorious right now that's still running is Microdrone. This is a terrible campaign. It's now 2 years old. It promised to deliver the drone a year ago, and it's a year late now. It still hasn't delivered anything. Backers are furious. People have even changed their names on Indiegogo. Sorry for the language in that one. But people are so frustrated. They've spent their money, hundreds of dollars, on a pre-order on the promise of a drone that could do so much, and they've been let down. In fact, this campaign owner even used snippets from one of my videos in their campaign marketing video. And I actually started a copyright strike against them and had the video removed from YouTube. Because he didn't ask for permission, and I'm not marketing this terrible product. I'm not having anything to do with it. People are furious, and they're still now taking the owner of the campaign to court to get their money back. Not just in Europe, in the UK, but also overseas in the US, Australia, Asia, everywhere. Yet again, another campaign that promised the world and is just letting people down. In fact, this campaign on launch promised to have a 12 megapixel camera. That has now changed to a 5 megapixel camera. The weight has gone up by between 20-30 grams than the original weight that was committed. Lots of specifications of this drone have changed, and I don't want to scare everybody here, but before you part with your hard-earned money, please really think carefully about this drone, because right now it doesn't exist. We've not seen any video of a prototype. We've not seen any video of it flying, of it hovering, of it holding its position. We've not seen any video from this camera. We don't know if the gimbal is any good. It will be their first ever micro gimbal. We don't know if the camera sensor is a good quality camera sensor. When we say 4K, there are varying degrees of 4K between budget drones that say 4K and a premium drone that says 4K. So just think very, very carefully before you part with your hard-earned money. My advice on this is wait for them to send it to people. Wait for them to send it to drone channels. It doesn't have to be me, although I must say I've tweeted Hubsan and said I will pay for one of these if you send it to me so that I can review it and test it to let the consumers know whether it's worth buying or not. They haven't replied so far. Now, the other concern I think that most people really should have here is the shipping date. TBD. That means to be decided, or to be disclosed, whatever you want to call it, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. But I would say to be decided is probably more appropriate. Because if this drone hasn't yet been manufactured yet, which is highly likely, and the reason that they launch a pre-order is because they don't want to pay for the manufacturing, they want you to pay for it. The challenge here is if they haven't manufactured it yet, then it's not been tested. It's very much an alpha product. And that means that whoever receives it first is probably going to end up being the testers for it. And if you've got problems with it, I doubt you'll be able to send it back for any money. Now, as Alminox in the comments says, vaporware at its worst. Yes, sadly, despite the fact that Hubsan's name is behind this, if Hubsan themselves had confidence in this product, they wouldn't be pre-ordering it. They'd be manufacturing it, showing it off, sending it out to drone channels for free marketing, and they would be proud of it. But the fact is, right now, the drone doesn't exist. It's not been manufactured. They're asking you to pay for its development. And that says to me that the manufacturer doesn't have confidence in its own product. A little bit like Microdrone from Extreme Flyers. They clearly didn't have confidence in their own product because it's taken them 2 years to develop it. Imagine if they had to fund that themselves, they would have gone bankrupt. Instead, they've used, let's see, $1.76 million of pre-order money to manufacture it instead. So it's not the company building this drone, it's you funding it. It's exactly the same with this new drone from Hubsan. Please, please be very, very careful. Looking through the comments. Now, my job here as a drone reviewer is not to get you guys to buy stuff. My job is to make you guys aware of what you might not consider, because I know you get a lot of excitement when you see these new products, you know, especially when they have a specification as impressive as this Hubsan, and I do not want to see the market flooded with disappointed drone people, especially if it's your first drone and you fly it up in there in the air and it's an utter pile of pants. It's a flying potato, because as a new entrant to the drone community, that might put you off and you may never buy a drone ever again. Gorilla Man's Garage, that's why there's PayPal. Well, I'm sorry, but no, you're wrong there. The reason is when a drone takes over when a product takes over a certain amount of time to arrive after buying it, whether you buy it with a credit card or PayPal, there's a point at which your entitlement to a refund expires. And so therefore, when you buy a pre-order product, generally they take a long time to arrive. And if it expires, you're not going to get your money back. So there's not necessarily protection here. Don't fall back on that, because it's not always the case. For example, Microdrone is 2 years now, and every claim that people have made against PayPal or credit card has failed. They've had to instead go to court. By the way, they have won. Everyone who's gone to court so far has won, and the scammy owner of that campaign has never appeared in court. He's never defended himself because he knows the product is a pile of shite. Anyway, other comments. Hans Gott, do you know there'll be a Mini 3 coming soon? Highly likely, but the Mini 2 only just appeared at the end of last year, and so therefore it's unlikely that we'll see one until the end of this year, but most likely, I think, into early 2022. I don't know for sure. We don't know. There's nothing yet. Alaminox says, to be fair, I love my anamorphic lenses from Siriu, and they all started with Indiegogo campaigns. Absolutely. There are some great campaigns on crowdfunding. I don't disregard that in the slightest. However, a lens is very simple to develop. It's not going to be overly complex. It's a lens, you know? We're talking here about a drone, and a drone has so many elements and factors that go wrong, and plus also the fact is that when you offer an anamorphic lens, you're saying it's an anamorphic lens, that's pretty much it. With a drone like this, you're giving an impressive specification which you're having to work very hard to. That makes it much, much harder to deliver. V-Roy says, I bought a drone, after 5 seconds it fell. Sadly, there are many drones like that out there. Kim Caceres says, I'll wait for the review. Very, very sensible. I can't guarantee there'll be one here. If Hubsan ever respond to me and let me buy one for you, then I will buy it and I will review it. I don't need it, I don't want it, but I want to review it to make sure that I save you guys money. On the other hand, it might be brilliant, and therefore I want you guys to buy it, because if it's really, really good. So do me a favour, tweet Hubsan and say to send one to DroningON. Gorilla Man said, don't worry, I won't wait that long. I know the limits. Yep, fair enough, that's good. Gorilla Man says, have you heard of the Autel Mini? Yeah, there is. Yeah, we have heard a little bit about this. There is actually another alternative, which is the FIMI. The FIMI Mini. What a crazy name. A great looking little drone. They've clearly copied Autel here, however. Not like the Chinese to copy another manufacturer. However, I've heard that this drone is really not very good. It is another copy, a clone of the Mini 2 from DJI. Offers a lot, and I don't believe it lives up to much of it. I haven't flown one, I don't have one, but I have seen reviews of it. Gorilla Man has one as well. Let us know what you think about it. Peter Clamford says also crowdfunding generally are from new companies, not multi-million-pound companies like Hubsan. Absolutely. Yeah, crowdfunding has been used and abused over the years. In fact, I've seen companies, there was a big appliances company, I think it was Zanussi. They should not need to be using crowdfunding to market the idea of a new product, but many of them are actually using the platform now when they don't want to invest their own money, their own capital in developing a product. Instead, they want the public to fund it, and that means it's risk mitigation for the company. They're not risking losing as much money, and that is not very good, I don't think. It's not very admirable, is it? V-Roy, do you know a good drone with a camera stabilizer? Well, yeah, the Mini. The original Mini or the original Mavic Air 2, both are absolute bargains on the second-hand market right now. So get onto Craigslist if you're in the USA, get onto Facebook Marketplace. The original Mini is up for a bargain right now. If you can buy the original Mini combo, you can buy it for as little as $200 or $300, and you're getting a great drone there. Gorilla Man, being in Sweden, do you have to pay import fees? Actually, yes. So PGY Tech sent me some brilliant drone cases for review. You might have seen the review yesterday. I actually had to pay $60 import tax to have that arrive in Sweden, unfortunately. If you order it from websites such as Amazon and official sites, then you don't have to pay that. The tax is already paid in many cases. But when a manufacturer sends you something directly, like me as a reviewer, quite often they do incur duty or import. So it's always important when you're buying products, try and buy it via a reseller rather than, well, most manufacturers you can't buy directly from anyway. Bob says the Mini 3 price will likely be nearer $2,000. Sadly, we are seeing prices creeping up. Now, quite often it's the case that supply and demand, the more a product sells, the cheaper it is. But DJI know that they're the best. DJI know that there is nothing out there that compares with their mid-consumer level drone offering right now, and they're cashing in on it. They're putting the prices up, and evidence of that is the Air 2S, which used to be the mid-range drone. Now it costs as much as the Mavic Pro, the Mavic 2 did originally. So yeah, it's looking very expensive. Issa Agenblog, hey from Japan, thank you for watching. Do note, Issa, if you're thinking about this Hubsan drone, do note the point I made about the weight. The Japanese one will be 200 grams, and therefore that will sacrifice probably the battery size. Alminox says, as a videographer, I stick with my Mavic 2 Pro and I struggle with permits because it rides exactly on the divide between two weight classifications. Yeah, certainly in Europe, that's a big challenge for us right now. We have the EASA regulations all over Europe, and that is mainly driving now which drone people buy. It's a real shame that we can't just fly what we want to fly now, and instead we're having to think about that aspect. Gorilla Man says, do not buy the Fimi X8 Mini. Some really, really good products here. Gorilla Man says it's all about anticipation. It's the hobby. It will be like Christmas. Not knowing is exactly part of the fun. I disagree there. I don't want to buy a product that is going to potentially be 50% rubbish, 50% brilliant. In fact, I would probably readjust those margins for this specific product, given that we've not seen any of it in reality yet. I like to invest my money wisely in my hobbies. I don't want to buy something on the risk that it's going to be absolutely useless, or by the time it arrives doesn't do half of what's actually there on paper. Anyway, really, really good comments from you guys there. Keep watching. As I say, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button now. If you appreciate this content, hit the super chat button. It's always appreciated. And as I say, if I get offered one of these from Hubsan, if I can buy one from Hubsan, I will, because I genuinely hope that this drone can do everything that it's promised to do. Whether it can or not is yet to be seen, I would say. But I wish Hubsan the best of luck with this. I also am very interested in this date, because estimated shipping date TBD does concern me a little bit. We will see. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching in the chat. Thank you for some great questions. Hit the thumbs up button. And if you are in any Hubsan groups, share this video because it's always good to get some additional comments from people who know Hubsan products. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next.